All individuals are equal. The distinction lies not in birth, but solely in their actions. Inside, we are all the same. Does a woman who earns money by dancing in a strip club have a right to live? Is D'Alembert correct in stating that true equality of citizens consists in their being equally subject to the laws? On February 7th, 2023, an individual was strolling in an area near Flamingo Lakes and Highway 149 in Sam Houston National Forest in Montgomery County, Texas. Unexpectedly, their attention was drawn to a torn garbage bag, from which, according to the witness, human skeletal remains protruded. Shortly after, it was discovered that this was the upper part of a torso. Judging by the size, the body fragment belonged to a young woman. The police immediately had an idea about whose remains were found in the forest. Officers were so confident in their assumptions that even without waiting for the pathologist's conclusion and DNA tests, they contacted the Johnson family to inform them of the discovery. A year earlier, a young woman named Felicia Johnson from San Diego had come to Houston to celebrate her 24th birthday. No one had seen her since. The girl's blood-stained mobile phone and other personal belongings were found in a wooded area, but Felicia herself was nowhere to be found, nor were there any clues indicating her whereabouts. Felicia Marie Johnson, known on social media as Fivia Marie, was the eldest of 3 children. Her parents divorced, and all the kids remained in the care of their father, Kevin. The man struggled to handle the teenagers, so he soon married a woman named Myra. In appearance and character, Felicia was an exact copy of her paternal grandmother, just as sweet, kind, and smiley. She matured early. Her feminine figure attracted men's attention when Felicia was still a teenager, and as an adult, she decided she could earn good money with her looks. Social media became her personal portfolio. The young woman meticulously cared for her face, hair, and body to appear most presentable in photos. Felicia dreamed of a glamorous life and tried to conform to accepted standards. Long, wavy hair, fluffy lashes, sharply defined eyebrows. She danced and aspired to a modeling career. Unfortunately, while most young girls dream of modeling, only a few achieve this goal. Felicia was in the majority. But despite this, she didn't lose hope and continued to apply to various modeling agencies. The Johnson family lived in San Diego, California. Recently, Felicia celebrated her 24th birthday and decided to treat herself to a trip to Houston, Texas. She wanted the celebration to continue. For any girl, 24 is one of the best ages. You're already of legal age, an adult, in charge of your own life, and at the same time, you're still at an age where you can chalk up your mistakes to youth. Felicia spent a long time preparing for her celebratory trip to another city. She got a beautiful manicure, picked out outfits, and packed her things in advance. The young woman decided that if she found work in Houston, she could stay there longer. In general, she had many plans for this small journey, but it ended quite differently from what Felicia Johnson had planned. Her life would come to a halt at this magical number of 24 years. Friends, over 90% of viewers watch videos without subscribing to the channel. Check if you're subscribed. If not, please be so kind as to subscribe to the channel to support me. Harris, Houston, the city the young woman had long wanted to visit, a city of new opportunities. Throughout her time there, Felicia kept in touch with her family, friends, and all who loved her. She called for every reason, enthusing about the trip and sharing her impressions. But on Friday, April 15th, 2022, the calls abruptly stopped. The girl wasn't responding to messages, and even more strangely, wasn't appearing on social media. Previously, not a day went by without Fivia Marie posting a new photo on her page, especially from a trip to another city. But that evening, there was no word from her. Her loved ones grew worried. Felicia had simply gone silent without explanation. This was an alarming sign, as the girl knew how anxious her father became when she wasn't around, yet she still didn't make contact. She stopped communicating on Friday evening, and by Saturday, when Johnson still hadn't surfaced, her loved ones were gripped by real panic. The family independently hired a private detective. The investigator quickly established the location of Felicia's mobile phone and went to that place to try to find the gadget. It was a park called Bear Creek, a wooded area in Houston, just a few miles from where the girl was allegedly last seen. The phone was found near the park, lying on the roadside and smeared with blood. This discovery certainly didn't inspire confidence that Felicia was all right. The girl's father, Kevin, was in San Diego. As soon as the man realized something had happened to his daughter, he immediately boarded a plane and headed to Houston to find his girl. He couldn't sit at home and wait while his daughter was in danger. First thing, Kevin went to the police and filed a missing person report. In Kevin's opinion, the law enforcement officers initially didn't take the information seriously. As soon as they learned that Felicia was a girl of a different skin color, they accepted the report, but were in no hurry to take any search attempts. The first place they finally decided to search was Bear Creek Park, as that's where the girl's mobile phone was found. It was a doomed endeavor from the start. A vast area, overgrown with forest. Some areas were completely impassable. Roads meandered among the trees, leading in different directions. It was unknown where Felicia might have been heading to or from, or how her phone ended up here. Maybe it was thrown from a car, since it was found near the road. Searching for the girl, possibly not alive, in Bear Creek Park was like looking for a needle in a haystack. The task was complicated by the decision to conduct the operation without attracting outside attention. Detectives supposed that the person responsible for Felicia's disappearance could be a local resident and somehow interfere with the investigation. That's why they wanted to keep people unaware of the search activities. The number of people in the search group sent to Bear Creek was clearly insufficient, and those who were there didn't show much enthusiasm. The organizer of the squad stated that they were almost certain they wouldn't find anyone. Of course, they wished to be wrong in their assumptions, but in the end, Felicia Johnson, neither alive nor dead, was not found in the park area. It was very difficult for the girl's family to accept the first defeat in the search, but Kevin wasn't going to give up. The man declared that he would do everything possible and impossible to get his daughter back home, and he wouldn't rest until that day came. At his initiative, flyers with several photos of Felicia were printed and posted throughout Bear Creek Park, so that anyone passing by would know this girl was being sought. The flyers, besides photos, included a description of the missing person: a dark-skinned Latina, long black hair and brown eyes, about 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighing 68 kilograms, with a tattoo of roses and butterflies on her right shoulder. Local residents and park visitors studied the information on the flyers and indeed joined the search. Now they weren't just walking in the forest, but trying to pay attention to suspicious piles of fallen branches, looking into pits and ravines. The entire local community was searching for the missing girl. Special volunteer groups were created. Eventually, even the FBI got involved in the case. This happened after social activist and leader of the new Black Panther Nation, Quanell X, raised a wave of public indignation, concerned that in Houston over the past 5 months, 4 dark-skinned girls who had been attempted to be involved in the intimate services industry had already gone missing. All 4 were found dead, and in each of these cases, the authorities deliberately delayed the investigation. To the horror of community members, Felicia could become the 5th victim on this list. At a press conference on April 20th, Quanell X called on the Houston community to stand up for Felicia and help investigate her mysterious disappearance. The police began to take some real measures to search for the girl only after the activists' speech. However, despite all the actions taken in this area, the only thing found was Felicia's purse. Now, in addition to the search operation in Bear Creek Park, the police decided to talk to the girl's friends and family, those who knew and loved Felicia, and communicated with her in the days preceding her disappearance. Detectives wanted to create a timeline and see where else they should look. From conversations with these people, it was revealed that Felicia, while in Houston, decided to combine business with pleasure and try to earn some money. The girl told friends in messages that she had found an adult entertainment club called Cover Girls, located in the northwest part of Houston. She had signed up for an interview there as a dancer, but was rejected. After leaving the club, Felicia ordered a taxi to get to the hotel where she had been staying all this time. After the club, her trail went cold. However, this was a very good lead. The Johnson family and social activist Quanell X, who was helping them in the search, believed that Felicia's disappearance was somehow connected to this nightclub. Kevin even suggested that his daughter had somehow gotten into a situation related to human trafficking for intimate services. As practice showed, out-of-town girls were kidnapped and forced to sell their bodies. Kevin had no concrete evidence, but deep down he felt that the strip club had something to do with it. In fact, the man just wanted to believe that his girl was alive, that she had gotten into a difficult situation from which she couldn't get out on her own, and he was ready to find her at all costs. Detectives also adhered to a similar version, as if Felicia had been kidnapped and held against her will. Therefore, they also hoped to find her alive. The authorities assumed that where she was being held there might be a TV or radio, so they asked Kevin Johnson to make a statement and address his daughter. It was a way to talk to her and let her know she was being searched for. Such an appeal could help the girl stay strong and not lose hope. In addition, Kevin Johnson's appearance on TV screens was aimed at reaching out to caring people who had seen or known something but were hiding it from the police. The man said that all friends and loved ones love Felicia, miss her, and mention her daily in their prayers. He asked his daughter not to lose hope for rescue and promised that he would not rest until he brought her home. The father also addressed the kidnappers, stating that the family would never stop, and he personally would begin to hunt for the person holding Felicia captive. In fact, Kevin and his entire family felt that they were the only ones concerned about their daughter's fate. They were sure that the police were not doing their job as they should, because everything that somehow moved the investigation forward was not done by law enforcement officers. The missing girl's mobile phone was found by a private detective. Her purse was discovered by a group of volunteers. Even now, it was not the Houston Police Department addressing the public, but Felicia's father. And this state of affairs caused Kevin even more negative feelings. 2 weeks after Felicia went missing, her family, friends, and concerned individuals who cared about the girl's fate gathered near the city administration, hoping to draw the mayor's attention to Felicia's case and how law enforcement was conducting the investigation. Kevin knew he couldn't handle it alone in a foreign city and called for support from the authorities. He had many questions for the police, but no answers. For example, the distraught father knew that detectives had the opportunity to obtain surveillance camera footage from the nightclub where his daughter was last seen. But for some reason, they either didn't request them or simply didn't want to show them to the Johnson family. It's unknown how successful this action was in attracting the attention of Houston's mayor, but they did manage to pique the interest of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. The woman helped ensure that the police would take this case more seriously. The Congresswoman also promised to obtain surveillance camera footage from the club for the family, if any existed. Sheila Jackson Lee stated that Felicia came to Houston as a guest, and they were obligated to ensure her safety. Kevin Johnson thought that if he could view the surveillance camera footage from the club, he would understand what happened to his daughter and see who was involved in her disappearance. But everything turned out to be much more complicated than the man thought. The management of the CoverGirls Entertainment nightclub initially told the police that they didn't remember if Felicia Johnson had come for an interview. At least, there was no documentary evidence of this. The girl hadn't filled out a dancer's application or left any statements. Later, it was revealed that the club only had internal surveillance cameras, recordings from which were handed over to detectives. They showed that Felicia did inquire about the vacancy, but the manager refused to hire her, after which she went outside and began calling a taxi. The girl's friends, with whom she had been messaging that day, also reported this to the police. So essentially, these recordings didn't provide any new information. It was only reassuring that the club wasn't involved in her disappearance. The behavior of the nightclub management raised suspicions with the Johnson family because they thought the club wasn't cooperating with the police. Although in reality, this opinion arose due to the lack of communication between the authorities and Felicia's father. The detectives simply didn't think it necessary to inform the missing girl's father about the progress of the investigation. It turned out that the nightclub wasn't the last place Felicia was seen. On April 16th, around 3 a.m., She returned to her hotel room located in the Houston Medical Center, and that's where she was last seen. The police were able to track Felicia's movements and find out what she was doing, who she was communicating with, and where she went after the hotel. After being rejected at the entertainment club, Felicia called a taxi. For some reason, the car was delayed. An unknown man offered to give her a ride to the hotel. After some consideration, she agreed. During the ride, the young people got acquainted and talked. The driver's name was Chukwuebuka Nwobodo. He was 28 years old, and he had come to the States from Nigeria. In reality, this guy grew up in Houston, went to school here in the Fort Bend district, and got a job here. So only his name gave away his Nigerian heritage. After parting, they continued their communication on Snapchat, where they arranged to meet the next morning. According to messages, Chukwuebuka offered the girl $500 for intimate services, and she agreed. After this, no one saw Felicia again. There was no activity on her mobile phone or social media, no credit card transactions. She seemed to vanish from the face of the earth. Now it became clear why the authorities didn't show much enthusiasm in the investigation. The life of an African-American woman who agreed to meet a man for money probably didn't seem valuable in their eyes. How else to explain the police's further actions? Detectives were able to determine that Felicia took a taxi from the hotel, which Chukwuebuka had ordered for her. The car took the girl to a residential complex on Windchase Boulevard, after which the man, in his own car with Felicia, went to his apartment on South Richmond Avenue. An hour later, Chukwuebuka's car was seen leaving the yard, and around the same time, Felicia's phone was pinged on a cell tower near Bear Creek Park, where it was later found. The police believed that night the man disposed of the girl at his home, then got rid of the mobile phone and purse by throwing them in the park area. Apparently, Felicia resisted, as that morning Chukwuebuka was captured on surveillance cameras in a home goods store, and his right hand was bandaged. The footage shows him with a bandaged hand buying garbage bags, gloves, a flashlight, a shovel, an electric kitchen saw, and a towel. This was on April 16th, and on April 17th, he went to a local clinic about a cut. So he didn't dispose of the girl's body immediately, but only after a few days. He dismembered her body to make it easier to hide. After the police found out that Chukwuebuka had ordered a taxi for Felicia Johnson, he became the #1 suspect. Later, detectives were able to view the search queries on his mobile phone, and it was horrifying. The man was searching the internet for how to become a serial maniac, whether bleach can destroy DNA, the most wooded part of Houston, how to avoid punishment for crimes, and more. Also, one of the searches included information on the 15 cheapest places to live for about $1,000. This meant Chukwuebuka was planning to flee in advance. So the attack on the young woman was premeditated, and that woman turned out to be Felicia Johnson. On May 13th, 2022, the police had an opportunity to take Chukwuebuka into custody, but they didn't do it. However, after this, the missing person case was changed to a criminal investigation. Even though the body was never found, the authorities believed the girl was dead. This was all very difficult for Felicia's father to accept. He didn't want to acknowledge that his daughter was no longer alive until the very end. Kevin tried his best to keep himself together and not break down. However, the inaction of law enforcement undermined his faith in a favorable outcome of the case. On May 13th, Chukwuebuka was arrested for a traffic violation. This happened a month after Felicia's disappearance. They confiscated his phone and searched his car, after which they released him without charging him with a crime against Felicia. In Chukwuebuka's car, they found a 9mm pistol, cleaning supplies, a whole bunch of latex gloves, a shovel, and the like. Dried bloodstains were found on the back seat and in the trunk, which were taken for analysis. As the authorities explained, they didn't have enough evidence to bring charges against Chukwuebuka, so they simply detained him, interrogated him, and released him. But before that, they took his mobile phone for examination. They also had a warrant to search his apartment, but the suspect wasn't planning to return home. As soon as he was released from the police station, Chukwuebuka disappeared in an unknown direction. Meanwhile, the police examined his mobile phone and searched his apartment, and this investigation revealed the bitter truth. Obvious bloodstains were found in the suspect's apartment. Most of it was on the floor, in the bedroom, and in the hallway. Forensic examination confirmed that the blood belonged to Felicia Johnson. After such a huge blood loss, the probability that the girl would be found alive was, unfortunately, non-existent. Checking Chukwuebuka's mobile phone revealed an even more horrific picture. Photos of several deceased female bodies were found in the gallery. One body was dismembered and photographed. No confirmation that the photo depicted Felicia Johnson was found. However, given the condition in which her remains were found a year later, such a possibility can't be ruled out. No specific information about the bodies in these photos was also revealed. These women were not identified. There was no metadata associated with the images. However, detectives found materials from one case in which Chukwuebuka was accused of harassment. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like this video. It's really important. It turns out that a few years earlier, a woman had reported to the police that she was attacked by a man. He tried to force her into sexual intercourse right in his car. By resisting, the woman was able to escape from the car. The assailant tried to chase her, but she managed to hide. So the victim got away with just fear and emotional distress. The attacker's name was Chukwuebuka Nwobodo. The problem was that later she didn't want to cooperate. The woman told the police that everything she had said earlier was untrue and that there had been no violence against her. The complainant, without explanation, said she didn't want to press charges against Chukwuebuka. The police didn't investigate why this happened, but the fact remains. The suspect in Felicia Johnson's death had previous instances of attacking women. The blood of the missing girl in Chukwuebuka's apartment, the photo of a dismembered body on his mobile phone, and other irrefutable evidence surfaced at the moment when the man had already been released without any charges. If law enforcement actions had been more coordinated, the perpetrator would already be behind bars. As soon as the police realized their mistake in releasing Chukwuebuka, they quickly brought charges against him in light of the newly discovered circumstances. This happened in June 2022. He was accused of killing Felicia Johnson, as well as tampering with evidence. Unfortunately, finding him just as quickly wasn't possible. On one hand, this was a real step in the investigation. On the other, the charges against Chukwuebuka destroyed the Johnson family's hopes of finding their daughter alive. They still wanted to believe that the girl had gotten into serious trouble, but that they would be able to see and hug her someday. At that time, social activist Quanell X made a statement to the public, saying that Felicia's case was a warning to all young women, regardless of their skin color, about how quickly their lives could be cut short. She called on people to look around and see if there was anyone in their surroundings who could so easily steal a life like Felicia's. After all, only through joint efforts can this wave of violence against women be stopped. A reward was offered for any information that would lead to Chukwuebuka's arrest. Loved ones managed to collect $5,000 in hopes that someone would report the whereabouts of the criminal suspected of killing Felicia. Vigils were also held in honor of the deceased girl both in San Diego, where she was from, and in Bear Creek Park, where her belongings were found. People prayed and remembered what a wonderful person she was. Witty and cheerful, Felicia had many friends not only on social media but also in real life in California. For most, it was a real shock to learn that their friend had disappeared somewhere in Houston, and they would never laugh at her jokes together again. Many felt a sense of hopelessness and grief. The vigils and prayers were meant to help people cope with their grief, uniting to come to terms with the loss through joint efforts. It was very important for Felicia's family to know that she was loved not only by her close ones, but by many other people as well. They all prayed that the girl would be found soon and buried properly. The Johnson family had to live in a state of constant waiting for a whole year. Felicia disappeared in April 2022, and her remains were only found in February 2023. When the police received a report of human bones found in Sam Houston National Forest, detectives immediately thought it was Felicia Johnson. However, An examination was first needed to identify the body through dental records. But the officers didn't wait and immediately called the girl's father, Kevin, to inform him that they might have found his daughter. This confidence was due to the location where the skeletal remains were found, the degree of decomposition, and some jewelry that remained on Felicia. Despite the fact that it had not yet been confirmed that it was Kevin's daughter who was found, the man took this news as a blessing from above. It was very hard to wake up every day knowing that Felicia was not alive, but it was even harder to know that she wasn't even given a proper burial. Now he could bring her home and lay her to rest as she deserved. This entire situation with the discovery of a body found in the forest proved shocking for local residents. Though it was a wooded area, it was located near residential homes. Upon seeing a crowd of police officers and forensic experts, several service vehicles and yellow tape stretched between trees around a small section of the forest, they immediately realized something extraordinary had occurred. People often went there for walks and never imagined that a few feet away from them, the body of a missing girl who had been searched for throughout the year was buried. Thanks to the efforts of the Johnson family, public activist Quanell X, and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, Houston's population knew about this story and sympathized with Felicia's loved ones. Forensic examination confirmed through dental records that these skeletal remains indeed belonged to Felicia Johnson, who had vanished a year ago. Since only the upper part of the girl's torso was found, determining the cause of death wasn't possible. One thing was clear: the demise wasn't natural. It was also unclear what happened to the rest of the body. Either animals had scattered them, or Chukwuebuka had hidden them in different places. It's possible that years later, other fragments might be found, providing additional information on the case. But for the Johnson family, this was already a victory. Felicia's father made a statement saying his daughter had returned to seek justice. He felt relief that he could put an end to this part of the story. The man was glad that his child would soon return home in one form or another. Then, the grief-stricken father, Kevin, issued a chilling warning to the alleged perpetrator, vowing to put his life on the line to find him. These few months during which he waited for answers about what happened to his daughter were a real ordeal. He was overwhelmed with emotions. His health suffered. But now that Felicia would be nearby, he and his family wouldn't rest until they achieved justice for her. As a father, it's very difficult for him to comprehend what happened to his daughter and what she went through. In fact, Kevin Johnson has been battling depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and hypertension for the past year. He couldn't sleep and couldn't come to terms with reality, while the villain who took his daughter away remained unfound and unconvicted. Incredibly, to this day, Chukwuebuka Nwobodo is still on the run. It's possible this monster has committed more than one bloody crime. He's a dangerous individual and could be near someone who hasn't heard about Felicia Johnson's case. The best thing you can do is share this video with friends. Let justice finally prevail and the innocent victims of this criminal be avenged. Kevin Johnson, along with his family, dreams of creating a foundation in Felicia's honor that will help women who have faced forceful involvement in selling their bodies, as this is a global problem. A person's line of work doesn't make them less worthy of life or less deserving of compassion. Felicia Johnson wasn't just a 24-year-old dancer. She was a daughter, sister, friend who deserved to live a long and beautiful life, despite everything. This is the end of the story. Like the video and leave your thoughts in the comments. This was Jeremy. See you soon.